sweets is a real common food craving. So when someone says they like sweets, unless they like it a lot, it's not so useful. But he didn't even mention that he really likes sweets at all. So a remedy that really craves sweets strongly, it almost possibly goes against that remedy. We would put lower on the differential list a remedy that has intense sweet cravings, for example.
I don't know if this would be a guiding symptom, but I remember him saying that he would feel better in the morning, and then he would feel worse in the evening. His mood would,
Yeah, so time, aggravation, and amelioration. So amelioration is what makes someone better, aggravation what makes someone worse. That is very important symptom, especially if it's strong. And the more specific they can be about the time, the better. My interpretation of the case was that he did not actually really have any strong time modalities. What he had was, I didn't put down the details, but in questioning, what it must have been was that he was worse in the late afternoon, maybe if he was working or if it was related to some activity. So you always want to find out, is it related to some activity? Like if someone says, I'm always better around 7 at night, well, is that because they've just eaten? Or because they just left work and they're happy to be leaving work? Is it the same on the weekend or when they're traveling or things like that? So you have to be very careful to make sure you're really eliciting the symptom that you're asking about.
Now, did you note a depressive mood increasing at night?
Maybe. Let's see. So generally his energy wasn't worse. Let's take a look. You have a better memory than I do. I have to write it all down. Yes. His mood, his anxiety, or depression is definitely, he's restless and anxious and more depressed at night. So you are right. And that's a good symptom. It's not so uncommon.
That's true.
Or it's not uncommon, but it's definitely characteristic.
Because there are some remedies, right, where you feel more depressed when you wake up.
Yeah. Some when you wake up, some in the afternoon, some in the evening. So yeah, that's a helpful symptom. That's a good one. You're doing good. Very good.
I'm trying to open. I have that that hourglass in my brain.
Yeah,
files are trying to open
without the file here, I'd be lost. What else can you remember?
I also remember, and maybe he didn't say this outright, but it's something that I was like what I picked up from what he talked about, that he really wanted to do things well. And if he did not do them well, and someone, made a remark about it, it would really kind of get next to him. Like he had like a heightened sensitivity to criticism about his work or what he did, because he made a statement that he always tried to do his best. And so whenever someone would say maybe he could have done better or hinted at that, it would slightly irritate him, not to the point where he would show it. And then speaking of that, he had an ability of hiding things. So like when he would be upset or frustrated, he would be very stoic.
Yes.
But it was all going on internally.
Right. But at the same time, I think he said when he's like alone, and a little thing that triggers him, he will like punch something. Or
That's true.
He punched something, it will come out in an outburst.
Right.
When he, and I think I got a sense, I'm not sure, but when he did that, the physical outburst, like punching, the hitting a desk or something, immediately kind of gave him a relief.
And yeah, so there's a lot of anger and irritability. Anger at himself, the criticism and things. There's a strong sensitivity to rejection.
Yes.
Also to humiliation. He easily disappointed, and that would really affect him. So some people, the disappointments in life, they look on the bright side of things. He has an overall pessimistic personality. So that's a symptom right there. And we have a whole rubric in the mind section of the rubric called ailments from. So ailments from anger, ailments from disappointment. So he has ailments from disappointment.
Okay.
That was a big one.
Okay.
He would brood over past disappointments. He didn't just let it go. He'd go back and think about it. A lot of regret and blaming himself. So not just angry at other people, but angry at himself for a lot of this. He did seem to express the anger fairly often in different forms. He said he would, either talk to a friend, he would slam down the phone, do those kinds of things. He would curse often.
Oh, right,
throughout the day.
yes.
That's right.
And that was actually what I considered to be the most characteristic, the number one guiding symptom, the most characteristic thing about Ramsey was that he several times a day, every day, curses. That's a lot. It's one thing you have a bad day, you're prone to cursing, you do it once every few days, once a week, once a month. Every day, several times a day, he curses. That's a lot. So that's you. So definitely, we need a remedy.
That was a 4 for you, huh?
Yeah. To me, that was a 3.
Oh, 3. Okay.
Yeah. Had he been doing it throughout the interview, maybe that would have been a 4. But at least a 3. Maybe it is a 4 if we followed him around. Maybe it's every hour. He's doing it. We don't really know. But I would say it's a 3. And so the in the repertories, the databases that we use, the remedies are also graded from 1 to 4. So if you look at a particular remedy, does it have as a characteristic associated with itself the disposition to curse? So it could have it as a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4.
Okay.
So if we have in our patient a symptom that's a 3 or a 4, we want to see it at least as a 2 or a 3, especially if we consider it to be like a really, really strongly characteristic. So we don't, and especially if it's a well-known remedy. So if it's a well-known remedy, there's data there, it should be there, it should be strong. So we would expect that to be there for sure. What else? What other...
Now, you mentioned cravings, and I know that with depression and anxiety, alcohol is often used.
Yes.
But is alcohol,
this one,
being a toxic choice?
It's a little different. It's definitely, there are rubrics for drug and alcohol addiction, so some people are more prone to that. So we would prefer to have a remedy that has that as a characteristic for sure. Absolutely. But the difference is he is using it very specifically medicinally with sleep. So it's more of the alcoholism is more of a symptom than an innate. I think if he were sleeping fine and weren't feeling anxious, he probably wouldn't feel compelled to drink.
I see.
So it lowers the significance of it to some degree. If he just drank to drink and couldn't stop himself, kind of thing.
It didn't seem like he was having social time where
No.
he
Right.
was hanging out
Right.
with people
Yeah.
at sport bar
Yeah.
and just
He's
keep
just
drinking.
having a really
Yeah.
hard time sleeping.
Okay.
So yeah.
He's doing it before he goes to bed.
But it's not to be overlooked either. I mean,
Right.
it's significant. It's definitely significant.
Yeah, the
Um,
amount he was consuming is a little more than,
Yeah.
what is, most people would say.
I asked him some other questions after last week,
Mhm.
or excuse me, after last month. So he said his explosions of anger. Did he ever? I asked him if he how often he had explosions of anger. He said, currently, not really very often.
Right.
But he used to when he was
Mhm.
younger, and I think some of the therapy that he's done has, excuse me, has caused that to go down.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So you have to look at when people have done therapy, any kind of therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, psychotherapy. Did they learn to express themselves, or did they learn to control or suppress their anger? Those are things you want to get a sense, because if that's a result of therapy, really you would use how they were before the therapy as the true symptom
Right. Right.
of that.